Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest, Dr. Herman-Williams, and he's here to share with us the principles from his book, Clear, Living the Life You Didn't Dream of. Now, Dr. Williams is the managing director of the BDO Nashville Healthcare Advisory Practice and is a leader in the BDO Institute for Healthcare Excellence and Innovation. He has extensive experience as a senior hospital executive with healthcare expertise that includes the management and operations of large and small-scale national clinics and hospitals. His successful leadership has resulted in achieving the highest and safest levels of quality inpatient and outpatient care. So several weeks ago, we were lucky enough to have a discussion with Dr. Williams, and you can imagine just how busy he is during this challenging time in our history. While many of the practices we're about to discuss was before our new normal, it gives us a place to start and how we can incorporate a new wave of kindness into our everyday lives. So please keep this in mind as you enjoy this inspiring discussion. So let's welcome to the show, Dr. Herman-Williams.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show again.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I feel honored having you here to talk about this. I feel your story is so profound, it could touch so many lives. And, I've got to ask you, you've gone through so much. What is some of the main inspiration that's kind of kept you, just kept you going?
Well, I just, when I practice the art of kindness and spreading kindness, and in our last conversation, we talked about the kindness scale that I actually came up with, which starts with just the basic gesture of smiling and goes up with gradually increasing effort, helping someone with a bag, opening a door. I just get so much positive reinforcement that that's the way life should be, and that it's the right thing. I'll give you a quick example. I ran into a group of police officers who were having lunch. And I always, when I see police officers, I just always think, my goodness, what they do to put their lives on the line, they never probably get enough acknowledgement of how much we appreciate what they do. And so I bought them lunch. It was, like $25. And you would have thought that I gave these guys a raise. I mean, they were so appreciative and just so welcoming, and said thank you, and we really appreciate it. And I told them, we want you to know we appreciate what you do, and you risk your lives every day. I was on the plane the other day, and this mother, as usual, she's got the baby in the front pack, and she's got 4 or 5 luggages, and she put the baby in the chair on the airplane while she tried to adjust herself. And Marianne, the baby, rolled off the chair onto the floor. No. And she was okay, but the mom was, I could tell she was absolutely devastated. I said, look, let me help. Let me put your stuff up. You hold on to the baby. I said, look, even if I can hold the baby, I'll hold the baby while you put your stuff up. But I tried to make light of it. But I helped her because she was there by herself. And so I just believe that sort of the feedback I'm getting back from my surroundings is that kindness is the way to go. And when I smile, I feel like there's an aura of kindness around me. And those people that I walk by, they smile back. And so I just feel it's a very powerful thing. And it's really reinforcing that that's the life I should continue to live. And I do everything I can to help others, utilizing the generosity and gratitude that's been given to me. And I just give it back.
How empowering is that? And we all see somebody in our path that can use a hand. And it doesn't take much, effort for us to extend it.
It really doesn't. And sometimes reflecting on another aspect of my book, The Elevator Test, when you're in an elevator with someone and you think, they don't say anything, you don't say anything. And it's like, okay, if I can just ride this out, I won't have to say anything before they get off. And then all of a sudden, they look at you and they smile and say, good morning. And you say, oh, good morning. How are you? And you have a brief dialogue and say, well, have a great day. And you just realize how could I have missed that opportunity to bond with another human being in that short moment of time and have an impact, a positive impact on their life, which is going to impact their next meeting and their next person that they interact. And so it's just so powerful.
Yeah, it really is. Those small little things of kindness that we do throughout our day, it's just such a positive thing that just not only moves other people forward, but ourselves.
Yes, it really does. It really does.
So for our listeners that are new to your story, I know last time we had a great discussion in regards to your background, when it happened. When did you kind of discover and create the kindness scale?
Well, it was about 28 years after my initial cardiac arrest, and after I was resuscitated by 4 friends, and it was after I had a stroke. Really, that was 26 years after the initial event. And when I lost my voice, because I came in with an active stroke in progress, and I knew I couldn't speak. I was, my brain was saying, say hello, but it came out all garbled. And as I sat in my room for 3 days trying to figure out how I would live life, not being able to communicate with words, my voice miraculously came back. And it was there that I put together both my mission in life, I literally committed it to paper, and I said, I get it. I'm supposed to provide kindness, and I'm supposed to tell people how precious life is and how important human interaction is, and that's where I came up with the kindness scale.
It seems that you are really living your mission, because I can see that you're out there doing as much as you can to empower as many people as you can.
I really am. For people who are trying to understand, this is an active way of being for me. I try and keep things humorous to relax people so that they're comfortable in interaction. I tell jokes. I speak to people in the grocery store. I comment on, oh my God, what an outstanding suit you have on today. I'll pay you if you give me that tie right now. I purposely say things to compliment each other. I purposely manage up people on my team. We'll be on the phone, and the most junior person on our team, who is a recent graduate from college, compared to myself with 20 years experience, and I've got 2 graduate degrees, actually 3 graduate degrees, but every time we're on the phone, I always say, and his name is Will. I always say, well, Will's the boss on the team. Will, what do you think? I always empower and just live a life of kindness and help people to feel good about themselves. And it takes effort, and it takes a constant programming to say, okay, given this particular situation, how can I make this person feel the best out of this interaction? So it is a conscious effort to always allow someone to save face and someone to feel like they benefited from the interaction. And of course, the benefit for me is providing that level of kindness. So it's not totally unselfish. It also, I benefit because I feel good about what I'm doing every day when I wake up. So it's really a conscious effort to live a life in a certain way.
Well, I love the way that you're living your life, and I think it's such a profound way to look at every day because, I mean, you approach it as, hey, how can I make an impact today?
That's right. You gotta plan it every day, just like just like you plan your day. It's how can I feel good about myself today? How can I, at the end of the day, tell myself, I really think I made a difference here. I really want to always manage up my younger team members. How do I feel about what I accomplished today? And I go home with a smile. It's just a great feeling that I'm doing something for humanity, rather than just going through life trying to figure out what's best for me. Some people, they're totally occupied with that. What's best for me? How do I get the best out of this interaction? How do I get first in line? How do I cut this car off and get to the corner before they do? I mean, all of those things, they're minute to minute decisions we're making in our head. And however you are focused, that's the way you're going to react. So it does involve some retraining because we naturally want to do what's best for us.
During you've gone through this health crisis, and you briefly shared about that with us. I know we went into great detail the last time we had a discussion. During that time, who have been some of the heroes in your life that have really stood up and helped you?
There have been a few. I'll mention a couple, of course. The singular most important hero is my wife, who is just, compassionate, but hard as nails in terms of being able to go through this very traumatic experience that we went through. And I would just, give a shout out to all the caregivers. I talked to a friend of mine who is now a friend of mine, who interviewed me on his show. And I didn't know until he revealed to me on a show that he was paralyzed from the neck down. And he said, Herman, you're so right. What you go through, the caregiver goes through. When you're struggling, they're struggling. When you have shock from your defibrillator, they're getting shocked. And so my wife has just been an incredible hero in her strength, in the way she looks at me and says, everything is going to be okay. Let's just hold on, till we get to the emergency room. Or when I had my most recent incident 2 years ago at the Nashville airport, where I actually had a rapid run of what they call a ventricular tachycardia, cardiac arrest, where it wasn't a ventricular fibrillation arrest. It wasn't a fatal arrhythmia, but it was so rapid that I passed out and had to have CPR performed. And I just was devastated emotionally because I thought, here we go again. 28 years ago, this same thing happened. Here I am back again. And she just guided my hand through that. She didn't cry. She didn't waver. She is the miraculous angel and hero in front of me. Other people are a former boss of mine, Marty Rash. I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name, but after that incident occurred 2 years ago in the airport, I tried to come back to work in like 3 weeks. And quite frankly, I told him I was afraid I was going to lose my job. And he said to me, I'll never forget this. He said, Herman, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And we're in it for the long haul, and we're going to stick with you, and you have nothing to worry about. And you take as much time as you need to recover from this very traumatic event. So he's been an amazing hero in my life. And there are others that I mentioned in my book, Dr. Augustus White, who has been a world famous orthopedic surgeon who's been a mentor of mine ever since I was a medical student. and has continued to guide me throughout my life. So I've just been blessed with heroes who've continually changed their role and how they need to support me as I've gone through various transitions in life.
How would you say that these changes have influenced the way that you not only perceive life, but also work?
Well, it's a very good question. What I've tried to do, as a matter of fact, I've come up with the ABCs of leadership because in the book we talked about the ABCs of life, where I think A stands for acknowledge that you have a condition, but don't be defined by it. B is breathe, which really is the first thing you do before you relax, is take a very deep breath and breathe it out and relax. And C is live a life of compassion. I've tried to adapt that to leadership because it's very important in the workplace. We spend, 75% of our lives at work. And so the ABCs of leadership are acknowledge your team members and let them know you know a little bit about them. I know your name. I know you're married. I know you have a 6-year-old kid who's in high school. How's how's Johnny doing? I know you have an elderly mother who's 92 years old. My good friend at work always asks me, how's your mother? I know she's 92. How's her health? How's she doing? So acknowledge the team members, empower them, and let them know that you care about them beyond the confines of the work. B in the ABCs of leadership is the same as B in the ABCs of life. Breathe. Let's take a deep breath. We've got this mound of work to deal with, and we just got another mound thrown on top of us. Let's take a deep breath and let's figure out how we're going to relax and handle this and get to what we're responsible. And then lastly, C is also live a life of compassion. Be a compassionate leader. Don't just, tell people, crank out the work. Let's take a break and ask everybody, how are you feeling today? Anything going on that might interfere in your work that we need to know about? Again, how's Johnny? How's Sue? I understand you're taking time off to get a PhD. I had a colleague who was getting a PhD online while she was working. So the compassionate leader says, how's that going? And can I help you with a project so that you can complete your homework that's due? So I've tried to extrapolate this into my work life to empower me as a leader. And I noticed the same response that I get throughout my interactions in my personal life. I get the same respect as a leader, and I get better output and more people asking for things to do because they respect me as an individual and because I've treated them as a human being.
Yeah, it makes such a huge difference. We're living in an age where people feel more disconnected than they ever have. And these are really workable steps that people can take to kind of reconnect with those around them.
I think so. It is so easy to, again, only focus on yourself and what you can get out of life at everyone else's expense. The difficult thing is, how do I have an enriching life's experience with the people around me? We are a community. We are socialized beings. That's what makes us different from the other species below us, is that we are social. We live in groups and we take advantage of that. And so I very strongly believe that if you're not taking advantage of that, you're missing out on a key way to have an enriched life.
So we talked about being, the leader that you want to show up in the world as. How has this also impacted how you are as a father and a husband?
Oh boy, yeah. Very good question. I'm a big fan of Stephen Covey and the Covey Institute, and they talk about the very many aspects of your life. And so you really hit on three of the main ones. Well, there's more than three, but the three main ones, of course, are my personal life and my personal mission, my life as a leader at work, and my role as a father and as a husband. And, this is so important in relationships. And I think for people who've had a long-term relationships, I mean, like 25 years and more, we're at greatest risk for taking advantage of our partners and forgetting the importance of telling your partner, every day when I leave the house, I kiss my wife goodbye and I tell her I love her. And I call her 2 or 3 times during the day and say, how's your life going and what's happening? And I love you. And we always end a conversation with, I love you, to remind people, because that could be the last conversation you have with that person. And I have to laugh because we brought our son up this way. And imagine this scenario every night. My son is back home living with us. He graduated from college. He's back home. And most people are like, oh my God, get a job. And so he's looking for a job. But every night before my son goes to bed, he hugs each of us and says goodnight. And we've set that up as an expectation. If he starts to walk upstairs, we go, what? I don't get a hug tonight? I mean, can you imagine? I laugh because he does it as if it's an expectation. And I'm sure some people who are listening are like, I'm not going to hug my parents before I go to bed. Are you kidding me? But I talked to a woman who woke up one morning and her husband was dead next to her. And they hadn't said, I love you. They didn't hug each other. They didn't kiss each other. And she felt, my God, I didn't have that last opportunity to tell Joe how much I loved him. And it's those kinds of things that, they're not vital. They're not, absolutely essential to living a wholesome life. But I think it does allow you to be proactive in saying, we don't know how long we're here, but I want to do everything I can to make sure that my family, my spouse, my son, know how much I love them if today is the last day I see them.
Yeah, it's so important because we really don't know when that's going to happen. And I've had friends too. One I'm thinking of in particular, her husband wasn't feeling good at a restaurant, went to go lay down in the car for a little bit. He's figuring he's just not feeling good, and he passed away. And it's, you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. It's just crazy. I'll give you one more example. My mother is 92 years old, sharp as a tack, sharper than I am, has to remind me of the things I need to do. Son, did you do this? I forgot about that. But I talk to my mother every night. Call my mother. And even if it's just checking on you and make sure everything's okay, or if we have some business to take care of, did you deposit this check, et cetera. My mother lives in Los Angeles and I live in Nashville. But our business in terms of her checking account and making sure certain things are done are intertwined. And I keep up with her every day. And so we have made our peace with each other. If something happens to either one of us, we've made our peace. And I don't want to belabor this point, but if I go back to the event at the airport in Nashville, my mother and I have this thing where every time I travel, I send her a note and say, we just took off. And I send her a note and say, we just landed. I do that for my wife as well. And my mother said it was strange that day that you had that cardiac arrest in the airport. I noted that I didn't get a note from you letting me know that you had taken off, and I knew in my heart of hearts something wasn't right. And so, we've just established this way of communicating to reassure everybody that everything's okay. And these are things, again, that we take advantage of. I know I have a friend who travels and he leaves, and if he's gone for 5 days, he doesn't talk to his wife till he gets back. And I just can't fathom that,
Oh, wow.
But we've had so much trauma that for us, not talking, like if I don't call my wife once during the day, she may think something's wrong because we've gotten in such a rhythm. But I can't imagine going out of town and not having a communication with a loved one during that whole period of time. So these are just tips that your listeners can think about and reflect on and say, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if we had a little routine that we put in place to reassure us that we love each other, and in case, God forbid, something terrible happens, we'll all be at peace.
How important is that? I have friends that we talk to each other every day. And so I know how that is, that connection that you have with people and how important that is, because, we're here for this brief amount of time on this planet. It's like, what kind of legacy are we leaving behind? And one of the things you talk about in your book as well, which I love, is about purpose. And a lot of times you hear people go, well, I don't even think I have a purpose. What is my purpose?
Right. Yeah, when I speak, I always say, how many people have a personal mission statement? And occasionally there's 2 or 3 people that raise their hand. And then I tell the story of when I was in business school, when I first got introduced to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And by the way, I'm not endorsing the Covey program. I don't get paid by them or anything. It's just I'm trying to share books that made a difference in my life, and that's one of them. But when I read in the book where they said, develop a personal mission statement, I thought, what a bunch of crap this is. I'm not a company. I don't need a mission statement. But you know what? I have a mission statement now. It's make everyone better off in some small or large way after they leave me than before they met me. It's that simple. In every interaction I have, I try and set up a situation so when that person walks away, they go, God, what a nice person that was. I really kind of have a little warm feeling after talking to that person. God, I'm so glad I met Herman today. I mean, it's a simple thing to strive for, but it really makes a difference in your interaction. And you go home and you go, God, job well done.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's something that people, if you look at your life as having purpose, I mean, you're kind of planning for the type of life that you're looking to have, the type of experience you're going to have, and also how you're going to show up in the world.
Mm-hmm. And it forces you to be more proactive. It forces you to be more successful in the things you achieve, because if you have a mission, then from that mission flows purpose, and from that purpose flows specific goals in order to achieve that purpose, and from those goals flows tasks in order to achieve those goals, and those tasks have accountability and timelines, and you can measure them, and you can actually measure your purpose in life. And I think that's what it comes down to. It's one thing to say, yeah, I'm making a difference. Well, really? Well, tell me. Well, I did this last week, and I spoke to this class, and I went in front of this second grade class, and I read books for them, and I went to the American Heart Association ball, and I gave $5,000, and whatever those things are, you quantify and you say, all right, I have this purpose and I'm actually living it, and here's how I can measure my effectiveness.
So what are some things that you do to measure your effectiveness?
Yeah, so I set, again, we talked about the various, let's just call them buckets, in the workplace, I measure my effectiveness, one, by the projects we have and our ability to bring them and execute our strategy to completion. So I measure that, of course, by when the project is completed and we give it to the client and they say, awesome, you fulfilled all of my expectations. I measure it by how much guidance do I give my team members in how to be great leaders. And I measure that by looking at how they achieve their work and their goals and their leadership by my gauges. So that's just in the workplace. At home, I measure my effectiveness as a spouse by my wife, the number of smiles, her attitude. You know, when she wakes up and singing and we're having fun, I'm like, all right, we're in a great place. Let's stay in that place. If she wakes up and she's sad and unhappy, you know, that means something's not getting accomplished. The same with my son, his success and his ideas and my interaction and talking with him about his ideas about life and what he needs to do. And what are you doing toward getting a job? What are you doing toward your plans on your future? Well, Dad, I want to go to business school. Well, what are you doing toward taking the GMAT? Okay, well, the GMAT's coming up in a month and I'm getting prepared. So I measure it by, okay, what are his goals and how is he achieving those? And then you just go on and on. I believe in being charitable. I measure that by the number of organizations I'm involved with. You know, I'm the board chair for a minority supplier and development organization. I'm on the board of the American Heart Association. So I'm trying to get the message out on the importance of CPR. You know, I can go on and on and on, but I suggest that people have ways to measure the various goals that you're trying to achieve, which are inextricably linked to your purpose. And you may not have identified what it is, but you're doing things. And so I say, create the link between what you're doing and identify and explicitly declare, this is my purpose in life. And now I get why I'm doing this and why I'm doing that. Now it makes more sense. So I think a lot of people, if you ask them, they go, I don't know what my mission is. I don't know what my purpose is. But if I asked you, well, what do you do every day? And what have you done this year? And what are the great things you've contributed? We can pull together a picture that shows, my God, your purpose is about helping others. It's very clear by what you've done. So I challenge the listeners to kind of write down, look at last year, what you did and all the contributions and things that you did for people other than yourself. And that will give you a bird's eye peek into what your true purpose is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think a lot of times when people think about purpose, it seems like this daunting, task to try to figure out, and to lay it out like you do makes it really simple for people to understand, hey, I might be living it already.
Exactly. And I suggest the majority of people are. They have certain values that they live by. And look, I don't want to make, I want to be able to state this. I don't want to make a value judgment that the way I'm living life, everybody should live, everyone should live a totally unselfish, guided life and try and make every interaction you have some meaning. Look, that's what I've chosen. And that's the cross and the burden that I carry every day. But no value judgment. Other people have different ways of living their life. And they may say, no, I think it's important to be self-centered so that I can singularly focus on the cure for cancer. I don't have time to be nice. I have time to, help people with bags. And, I have devoted 100% of my life toward solving the mystery of cancer. Hey, that's beautiful. But I think if you identify that and declare it on paper and set up goals and tasks that help you achieve that, you will be more fulfilled and you'll be more successful. So I do want to be able to state that. I don't want anybody to feel guilty or anybody to walk away saying, well, he thinks that, this is the way I should be living my life.
Well, yeah, it's something everyone can, learn and adjust for themselves because you get a lot of
Hmm.
people who are asking these questions like, how do I do this?
Yes.
Especially younger people are like, how do I find my purpose and my mission in life? How do I even find any joy in the work that I'm doing?
Hmm. Yeah. And so these are just tips, and I always tell people, opinions are like elbows. Everybody has, a set. Is just ask other people what is their philosophy of life, what is their opinion. Put all those together and then formulate what you think is best for you. Don't take what Herman Williams is saying, as the gospel. It sounds great and it's great for me, but get a bunch of opinions, put them together, and then formulate what you think is your purpose in life.
So a lot of times people go through really difficult times. How can they find joy in adversity?
Yeah, very, very good question. Again, my approach is that what I found in my life is when one door has closed, another has opened. And that new door could be just a crack. It could be a window I have to crawl through, but there's another opening somewhere else. And what looks like adversity sometimes can actually be a life's challenge, that by overcoming that, you gain strength for the next challenge. And so I just think you have to examine it and put it into perspective, and again, decide how I'm going to approach it. I mean, let's take a couple examples. If it's a health challenge, then you just have to put it into perspective. Am I dealing with something that is going to be life-threatening? Can I fight it? Is there a cure? Am I dealing with, how do I make the best of the life I have? So you got to get all the facts, figure out what we're dealing with. And I suggest taking the most positive, proactive approach to any health challenge. And I've dealt with several. And this is also where I've leaned very heavily on my religious beliefs. The health challenges that I faced were life-threatening, but I survived the first insult. So it wasn't like I was dealing with a cancer, as an example, where I knew it was fatal. I had already experienced the insult. The impact on my longevity was uncertain, and that's where I used religion to say, I don't believe God is ready to take me. I think I have more work to do, and that's been reinforced over and over and over in my mind. So I have not faced like a malignant cancer, but that's how I would face it is, can I fight it? What's the most positive, proactive role I can take? If I can't, and I know I'm only going to be here for a limited time, how can I enjoy the life that's left of me, and how can I make the best of that? If it's a job, and I've lost jobs before where I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? That more often than not has been one door that's closed, but another is opened. So those are just some examples, but in general, I try and look at those things positively because I think I have work to do, and this is just an obstacle I have to overcome. I know this is not the end. And I have to say, Marianne, I've had plenty of time to practice. So what I'm telling you now is someone who's overcome 3 major life threatening clinical events. And so that's reinforced my ability to approach things positively. So I don't want to assume for somebody who's experiencing something for the first time that they're going to be that strong. So a little disclaimer there, but I think just approach it positively, have plenty of support around you to help you get through it. There's no need to go through anything alone if you don't have to. And if you are alone, I would seek out help first from a professional, and then secondly from a friend or family member or some sort of supportive services.
I think that's
sort of comprehensive enough.
Yeah, well, I think it's empowering for a lot of people, as people go through difficult situations. It could be personal health, it could be a family member, it could be just life. Life happens. It's good to hear, someone who's gone through such difficult times, and you have such a wonderful, positive attitude about everything. It's not like you have to get depressed, although I'm sure that's probably a stage for some people. But you have choices to make on how you choose to show up in the world.
You do, and you, by the way, should allow yourself to be depressed, and you should allow yourself to be angry. Why is this happening to me? And those are all natural stages that we, for those people who want to read more on that, Kubler-Ross has written a lot about the stages of grief. And you have to allow yourself, by her thesis, to go through those stages, no matter how brief, and some of them you skip, but don't feel like you shouldn't allow yourself time to go through those. The challenge is if you're in a stage of grief for months and you're paralyzed and you're losing weight and you haven't gone to work or anything, then now you are clinically in a situation where you need some help. So allow yourself that, but don't stay in that stage, and make sure that you're progressing on to a level of acceptance. And if not, seek professional help. So I can't overstate that.
That's so important. I mean, my goodness, you look at, just being able to talk about that, such a big deal, because, I think sometimes people get in that cycle, and realizing that you need help and it's okay to get it and there's no shame in doing that, I think is a big deal.
No. Oh my God. The best thing I did, and I am not ashamed to say, when this all happened to me in 1991, I probably was in therapy off and on for a good 5 to 10 years. And so even once you've overcome the initial insult, and even after you've experienced success, it is not unnatural that you still need therapy to maintain your confidence. You still need therapy because you're gonna fall back and drop into depression, or you're gonna fall back and fall into grief. And so, I met someone who was a survivor of the Las Vegas shooting, and she's literally been in therapy ever since, and still is in therapy. And so some of these things, I know we have access problems and access to healthcare, and actually mental health is one of the least supported benefits that we get in our employment. But I'd say utilize everything you can. And now people have health savings accounts where you can actually take money out of your check to put away to beef up benefits that you don't have. So what I did is I took money out of my health savings account and put it toward psychological treatment because the benefit was so poor. So, be creative about helping yourself. There are professionals who are there who are devoted to just listening to you and providing advice on how to cope in this very complex, difficult life that's filled with happiness, but is also filled with tragedy.
That's such an important thing for people to hear. Well, and as we talk about just overcoming tragedies and difficulties, what's kept you going on the same mindset that you're on all this time?
Mm-hmm. It's reinforcement again that I've overcome. So just to give people the odds that I've overcome, I've been resuscitated by bystanders twice in 2 different cities, in 2 different settings, one by a group of clinicians who it was second nature to them. But the second time was a man who learned CPR 40 years ago when he was a lifeguard, and he made the decision to resuscitate me, at an airport. And so, just when you look at the chances that someone is going to step up and give you CPR, it's very unlikely, and it depends on what city you're in and how educated that city is. I think you have the highest life expectancy with an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest in Seattle, Washington. I don't know if that's changed. So a lot of reinforcement. Again, I had a stroke where I came in with aphasia. I couldn't speak. And when my voice miraculously came back, it just reinforced my belief in God that I had more work to do. So again, I want to tell our listeners that I've had lots of positive reinforcement that has shaped my very positive and adamant opinion today. And so if you're reticent, if you're reluctant, if you're like, I don't believe that, I get it. But you have to train yourself. You have to discipline yourself to believe and take a positive attitude. You have to believe that the glass is, half empty. You have to believe that you can make a difference. You have to believe that you have a mission. You have to believe that there's something bigger than you that can help you through these very difficult challenges.
So I know a lot of people come to you for executive coaching. What is that like? And what are some of the topics that people come to see you for?
My coaching is very broad. It's mostly helping people who are looking at career transitions, mostly healthcare professionals, but occasionally I've coached a couple of actors who are struggling in their career, and coached people. I've coached several women who have basically said, look, I've just got a lack of confidence. Can you help me figure out a way to be more confident? So mostly in supporting people in the roles that they're doing and help them become more confident, more positive, helping them understand what's out there. But the beauty of coaching is that it's very different than consulting, and it's very different from mentoring. And I think in consulting and mentoring, you have the answer. You say, Herman, I've got this problem. And I say, Marianne, I've been down that path. Let me tell you what you need to do. Coaching is more, well, tell me what you think you should do and let me coach you through that. Coaching is more listening and help guiding people to their own conclusions. Coaching is not making a value judgment, but helping people achieve what it is they want to achieve. So it's a really different, special skill. And there's always that temptation to come up with the answer. That's the hardest part about coaching. But it's listening and saying, okay, what is this person telling me they want to do, and how can I help them do that? Okay, if that's what the decision is, are you sure? Now, if I feel that decision is really I don't think that's in your best interest. I can challenge it. I can put up questions. I can say, why do you feel that way? Why does that make sense? And, and if that's the way you want to go, then it's my job as the coach to help you get there. But that is the fulfillment of coaching, is helping someone come into their own and empower them to carry out their tasks.
So are you working mostly with executives when you're doing this type of coaching?
Yes, I think now my practice has really morphed into executives and largely in the healthcare field as an outreach of my responsibilities as the head of the advisory practice for BDO in Nashville, Tennessee. So it is really around coaching healthcare leaders and coaching mostly C-suite executives on how to achieve certain goals that they have.
Well, you're definitely the person that's been there and done that. My goodness, because when we look at just your life story, I mean, going from a physician and then having to kind of refocus a whole new path when your health crisis took over. I mean, a lot of people, that would kind of throw them off into the weeds.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I really am able. I think it just empowers me to really say to people, look them square in the eye and say, look, there are options. This is not a dead end. Now, you're the one that knows the options, and you're the one that has to evaluate the options. And sometimes the hardest part is really taking a look around and see if there are other doors open somewhere that I've overlooked. I'm so caught up in the fact that this door was slammed in my face that I'm blinded to all the doors that are open.
Yeah, it really is
reading something
taking that. Yeah.
I was reading something on LinkedIn, and this woman was just commenting on, literally, she had applied for, it was actually a beauty pageant. And she was talking about how this person had recommended that she go through the process of being in these beauty pageants. And she had talked about, literally, I enrolled and I lost and I lost and I lost and I lost and I lost. And she went through like 30 times that she lost. And then finally she became Miss USA. And she said, I learned from losing. I learned from those no's. I learned from those doors being slammed in my face. And it just made me stronger. I just refused to accept no for an answer. And now she, had talked about how she became Miss USA, which is just, you think about, and she said, you think about all those little local beauty pageants that I lost only to become, the winner of the most prestigious pageant there is. So, all the learnings from law.
It says a lot about determination and not letting people determine what your path is going to be.
Yes. Yes.
So as you are going forward now, I know a lot of companies have you come out and speak to their groups. What are some of the topics that you speak on?
Very good question. So a lot of people have me just come and talk about the story because it's just so incredible and it's funny. And, I think I've gotten really good at humoring myself by telling the story. But others have asked me to branch out into areas like emotional intelligence, which really talks about it is very synonymous with compassionate leadership and really having the sensitivity to those around you and having it influence your leadership. Another area that I've talked about is being your authentic self. and the whole notion of authenticism, and just knowing how important it is to be yourself, but to acknowledge that there are other viable opinions and not taking a, this is the way to go approach. So all of those are areas that I think are relevant to my message is, have a purpose, be your authentic self, be compassionate, don't give up, don't take no for an answer, don't let anyone tell you what you can or cannot do. And all of these have been just sort of, principles around living a fulfilled life. So those are some of the things I've been speaking on.
I just love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And what final tips do you want to leave our listeners with today, Herman?
I would just say, again, it'd be easy for me to just say, this is the way. I would tell people to do your homework. There are lots of people out there talking about how to live fulfilled lives. Do some reading. Read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Another great book is The Speed of Trust. I can think of Daniel Pink has got some great books out. People that help you really think about life. Marianne, your podcasts talk about understanding life and accomplishments and how to live a fulfilling life. I mean, take all of these philosophies into your mind and swirl it around and say, what's right for me? So hopefully, I've just given the listeners one more point on their decision process on how they want to live a fulfilling life.
Well, Herman, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
Yes, so I do have a website, clearlivingthelife.com. I hope to put some work into getting a blog together. I do occasionally make comments. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. So I do occasionally. But again, I'm not one of those people that throws out negative comments or tries to be political, except to say that we need to be together. We need to support each other. We can't blame other people for things that maybe we bring upon ourselves. So we can dialogue on LinkedIn, we can dialogue on Facebook, and just create your own platform to communicate kindness in your little narrow space in the world. That can be very powerful and influence those around you.
Well, Herman, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Marianne, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to your listeners. It's been a true honor for me to talk today.
Well, thank you, Dr. Williams. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and, of course, to talk about your book, Clear, Living the Life You Didn't Dream of. Again, if you'd like to connect with Dr. Williams, you can at clearlivingthelife.com for more information. His book's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and select indie retailers. And of course, you can get it on Kindle. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.